This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.
Hello there and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host Joe Rimmer and I'm joined by Theo Squires and Tom Cavilla for a very special podcast today. We're doing a bit of a Q&A. I think we've spoken about every midfielder on the face of the planet, so I think we should do a Q&A to try and pass some time today on this podcast. Theo, how are we?
Yeah,
it's not one of the questions, by the way. That's just
should be, shouldn't it?
For me, yeah, it should be.
It's the most important question in the office today.
Yeah, you doing well?
Yeah, I'm all good. How are you?
I'm all right. Tom, buenos dias. Cavilla.
Buenos dias.
Tom's taking Spanish lessons, so yeah, tell us how you are in Spanish.
Todo bien. I'm good. Yeah.
That was excellent. All those lessons have been worth it, Tom. You can move to Spain now. Right, well, we'll crack on with some of these questions. We've got loads in, and I'll try and sort of go through them as we go. Let's start with probably the most important one we've got so far, which I'm going to ask because I love it. Will Liverpool get new owners? Current owner is very stinky. So, I mean,
I can't say I've ever been close enough to John W. Henry to get a smell of him.
I've always imagined, I mean, there's a lot of things you can throw at John Henry if you like, but I don't think stinky would be one of them. He probably, I don't know, he strikes me as a man that would smell quite nice. Tom, you not think that? I mean, that's not the question again, that's mine. Theo, will Liverpool get new owners anytime soon?
Oh, the fact that you've thrown any time soon there has completely changed my answer, because I was going to say yes, at some point in the future they will.
There you go.
Isn't it that the stance is that they are open to investors, but it's not a full takeover at the moment. Yeah. They're quite content with the situation as it is, and so it stands. Like we've seen a number of clubs have difficulties with takeovers in recent years, be it Arsenal having, was it $1 billion offer they rejected from, was it in charge of, what is it? Spotify, the Spotify.
Oh yeah, the Swedish fella.
Yeah, they had that. Chelsea, all their problems since their takeover are well documented. United's takeover saga is just going on and on and on and on. So you think Liverpool's owners, FSG, they're more looking to see what lies from the market, how much United goes for and everything like that. I can't see it being a full takeover anytime soon because they have got their feet under the table and it is just this search for general investors at the moment, which still seems to have taken a back step from what we were first hearing earlier in the season. But then at some point, they're not going to be here forever. There is going to be a takeover. But yeah, Liverpool are quite content with how things lie at the moment. Let's
follow this up, Tom, because there's a lot of similar themed questions here, and I'm sure we'll sort of go through some of them. But a lot of questions about the owners, their investment. I mean, let's be honest. We're often called FSG apologists. I think you can sit somewhere in the middle. Where do you sit on the owners, Tom?
I think they've done a good job overall. I think in terms of the players they brought to the club, obviously getting Klopp in, and since they've been at the club, Liverpool won the Premier League, won the Champions League. But I do understand why fans are frustrated when it comes to spending, because we see a lot of the clubs around Liverpool, even clubs below Liverpool in the league now, spending more than them in the market. There's always the stats going around about Liverpool's net spend being one of the lowest in the league of the last 10 years. So, they don't spend to the same level as Man City or other clubs who just go out and get, they don't even need the players half the time. Man City being one, just signed Calvin Phillips for a season just to sit on the bench. Liverpool obviously don't have that sort of spending power to be able to do that, so have to be a bit more clever with who they buy and how much money they're spending. But I'm sort of somewhere in the middle on it in terms of I don't think they necessarily need new owners because there's no guarantees they're going to be any better. But I think they do deserve a bit of credit for what they've done at the club as well.
Yeah, I mean, just to complete that, I sort of go along with that. I mean, I feel like I've become more critical of the owners in recent years, and I think Klopp summed it up quite well when he said that they should take more chances, and he wished that. I don't know whether he said it in that many words, but he said he wished at times they took more chances, and I think certainly in the last few years, I think there've been opportunities Liverpool have missed by not taking chances, and that's a good example you use of Phillips to City. All right, that hasn't worked out, and he may leave the club, or he may kick on and become a better player, but sometimes you have to take a chance on a player to know, and I think the players Liverpool have signed, there's no problem with. It's sometimes the players that they haven't signed or the areas that they haven't strengthened that have left them weak. And I'd like to see the owners say, okay, like, let's take a gamble in the transfer market. Let's invest some money. And
it frustrates me though that it just comes down to transfers.
It does, yeah. I mean, people need to look beyond transfers and they need to look at other areas of the club. I mean, anyone who goes to matches at Anfield will know that stadium, there were times when I was younger and I'd bring friends to Anfield and it looked old, and you go to other stadiums when the Emirates was built and things like that. And I wouldn't say I was embarrassed of Anfield because I think it's an incredible stadium. I think it always has been, but it certainly didn't feel right to be hosting Liverpool at times. You take there now. I took a couple of friends from abroad to Anfield earlier this year, and I was proud to walk around that stadium and show them what was going on around there. It looks incredible.
You'd have like restricted views, wouldn't you? You'd have like the pillars in the corners or the roof so low down you couldn't see through the back of the stand.
Let's be honest, Liverpool fans often take the mick out of Everton for Woodison Park, and they're going to have an incredible new arena on the waterfront. But I think we don't put enough into that. They have done things like they got Klopp. They brought in the sporting director system that has worked so well. Training ground. Again, it's not something fans directly benefit from, but we want Liverpool to have the infrastructure that reflects the size of the club, and I think that they've done that. I do think they should have been taking more chances, but I'd take an FSG and a John Henry every day over, Todd Bowley. I mean, wouldn't you? Chelsea might be spending money like it's going out of fashion, and they might have found a loophole. It's the first time I think we've seen a club that isn't just like a sugar daddy spending money. They've found some sort of loophole and fair play, but that's not, that's not what you want, is it? They're just lashing money around at anyone and everyone. They've just signed a forward from Villarreal for 30 million. I mean,
he was linked with Bournemouth, wasn't he, in January? It's like a failed medical stopped him going there. So
I think the owners it's become a very tribal yes or no question when it's something so much more than that. But yeah, maybe people would say that this isn't bold enough, but I think it's better the devil,
For me, it still comes down to when any owner takes over a club, what is the first thing you want them to be able to say they do during their legacy at the club? Win the Premier League, win the Champions League. FSG delivered both of them when coming in. It didn't look like it was going to be possible. They brought in a club that was on the verge of administration. Yeah. So for them to have done that, you can say they should have won more. They should have spent more to be able to be in a position to win more, but they're not a Man City. They're not the Abu Dhabi billions there. Yeah, they could have done more with what they have, but they have still done better than at the 18 teams behind them in the Premier League over the past 5-6 years.
Yeah, and look, if it wasn't for Man City, we might be having a different conversation. But they're not just been an incredibly well-run club in terms of the sporting side of things. All right, FFP charges might change all that, but also, I mean, whatever owner Liverpool had, could they have matched the money Man City was spending? Absolutely not. Ditto PSG, Newcastle now, and look, I wouldn't want the conversation that comes with an owner like that as part of my football club, but that is just me. Moving on, Theo, because a story should be going up around about now. Someone said, is it true that Liverpool have opened talks for Southampton's Lavia?
Talks have been held, but I don't want anyone to get hung up on the fact that talks have been held means Liverpool are on the verge of signing him or are negotiating to signing him. It is just in terms of due diligence. Like Liverpool, we've been saying since March that the shortlist this year is longer than normal because of the uncertainty regarding whether they'd be in the Champions League or not, and the fact that they actually need a lot more players than they have done in recent years, like Konate, Diaz, Gakpo, Nunes. When you're talking big money signings in the past couple of years, it's just been that one. Yeah. Whereas this year we're expecting 3 or 4 to come in the door. So yes, there have been discussions about Lavia, the same as there have been discussions about Gravenberch, Thuram, Kone, Vega, but that is just in terms of, is he available? How much will he cost? What are his wage demands? Would he want to join the club? And just seeing what the whole market is. There is nothing in terms of, right, we're going to put in this bid, come to Liverpool now. Yeah. That's stuff that's still to be determined. But this isn't Liverpool like panicking or anything and they're falling asleep at the wheel. This is something they've always done. Like we mentioned it, I think, on one of last week's podcasts. When they got Simicas, they had 3 other left-backs who were looking at the time. We knew Jamal Lewis because the bid went in, or the discussions went in with Norwich, with Jota. Obviously, they went for Timo, or would have gone for Timo Werner before the pandemic happened. But beyond that, it was Jonathan David and another forward, Ismaila Sarr at Watford, before they decided to go for him. Liverpool always look at the number of players, have these initial discussions, and then when the time is right, make that next step. They've not made any next step at this time. It's just because people are saying talks have happened. There's that excitement there. Liverpool are about to make their next signing, but we've had that about 3 different players, I think, over the past 3 days. As things stand, no new developments. This is just what Liverpool have been doing behind the scenes all along for the past 2 months.
Okay, another question, Tom.
Yeah.
Isn't it better to fix the big thing this summer, the lack of legs, dual players, and lack of aggression from pressing players now, with the likes of Kone and Thuram, try and get back into the title race, and then next summer look for more creative players?
Probably, yeah. I think because that's what, when you watched Liverpool last season, that was what they were missing the most. There was quite a few games where they just weren't able to compete in midfield, and even against teams like Wolves and Bournemouth, just getting out-fought, out-battled like in every challenge. So that was a big concern last year. So I think that's probably something you want to address first of all. I think Liverpool have got enough creative players. You've got people like Jones and Elliott that can play in midfield, who are quite creative themselves. So you can call on them for that kind of thing. Where I don't really think Liverpool have got that kind of physical presence in the midfield at the minute. You've obviously got Fabinho who can do that role, but aside from him, there's not really anyone in there that as an opposition player you wouldn't want to be coming up against in terms of fearing them in terms of their physicality. So I think they should definitely be looking at that sort of profile of player for this summer, and then next year you could maybe look at someone a bit more like a Coutinho, sort of Vega, that kind of profile. But I think for now that would be the priority.
Go along with that, Theo?
Yeah, I would. When you look at the list of players that we know are on the shortlist, there's probably more players on the shortlist beyond this. Like the Gravenberches, the Kones and the Thurams, they are those physical players. I know Kone's a bit more defensive than the other two, but they're those 6'3", 6'4", box-to-box midfielders who just can't get the ball off, who can run all day long. Like, we almost took for granted Henderson at his peak and Gini Wijnaldum because they weren't getting the goals and the assists, but they were doing that almost ugly side of the game so well.
Gini Wijnaldum especially was a player that could shield the ball. He was technically very, very good. And I think Liverpool this summer, if they're buying a type of profile of player, want that player. They want a Gini Wijnaldum, good, technically good. But you look very...
I was just thinking, actually, I was saying about like the physical player now, they have to be like 6'4", 6'3". Kante was like...
No, but it's a different type of aggression.
It's a different type of player, but he obviously breaking up play amazing.
Yeah,
he was only, I think he's only like 5'6" or 7.
But I think Liverpool
and Makelele and Mascherano are small as well, but Klopp prefers his taller players.
Yeah, I think you do need someone taller though.
Liverpool need height, don't they?
Yeah.
I think that's certainly the case, and I would go along with that again. I think this is just gut, but I think they want Thuram as that main one, and I wonder whether they're waiting to see if they can strike a deal for Thuram before they go to a Lavia or a Vega or a Kone.
Like I'd say, my gut feeling is if you can get two, it's Thuram and Gravenberch, because we know the talks have been happening behind the scenes with Gravenberch's representation in April at the start of the year. But whether Bayern want to sell, whether Nice want to sell, the others, the deals are there to be struck. Like Vega's got a release clause in his contract. Lavia's got one for next year. So Southampton have been relegated, so they seem deals that would be easier to bring to the table now. But if they're just options, and you're looking at these two to see if they're available first. That is just gut feeling, doesn't mean that is actually what's happening behind the scenes. I don't have a Georgia smacked her on speed dial, just calling him up every night to find out his thoughts. But we'll see. There's so many names on that shortlist, and there's so much time for a deal to be sorted for at least one, if not two, of these midfielders.
We'll talk in that. One of the questions as well that we've had a few is people saying, what does your perfect window look like? So go on, Tom, give us some names and positions. What does a Tom Cavilla, if you're Liverpool's new Latin director of football, what does your perfect window look like?
Jude Bellingham midfield. Just get a deal from Real Madrid home to the line
after a month.
I think Gravenberch actually would be someone I would try to get in. I think he'd be a good signing. I think for what's being suggested, he wouldn't cost as much as the others.
Yeah.
I think 25 million is sort of the price that's been going around for him. So I think he would be one. Thuram would be the other, and maybe that's going to be 40 or 50.
Yeah.
If you can't get him, probably would go for Lavia instead over Kone, I think. And then I think
Because he's Premier League.
Yeah, probably, because I don't think you want to go for too many from outside the Prem. You know, if getting one or two is okay, but I wouldn't necessarily be going for all of them to be in that category. So, yeah, Lavia would be a good option, I think, if they could go for him. And then defender, I still think is probably needed as well.
Yeah.
I know we've seen Van der Ven linked quite a lot.
Yeah.
He could be a potential option. Outside of him, there's not really been too many for that left side. I mean, Colwill from Chelsea, that would be a good one, but I just think that's going to be a hard deal to do from the sounds of it.
If they could get him, that would be very good, wouldn't it? But I don't think they're going to be able to, especially if Brighton can't get to 30. And look at the way Chelsea are negotiating for Mount. They're obviously not, they're not going to give players away for nothing, are they? Which I think there was probably a feeling around Chelsea, wasn't there, going into this summer that they've spent so much they're going to have to cash in, but maybe Saudi Arabia's changed that for them. Theo, what does... So hang on, what was your final list there? Thuram,
Colwill, if it was possible, but that doesn't...
Gravenberch, Lavia and
Thuram.
3 midfielders.
If possible.
3 more?
No. 2. If we're going to go 2, Gravenberch
it's your window, Tom.
and Lavia would be the 2.
Gravenberch and Lavia is your 2. And then what defender have you named one? Or?
Van der Ven.
Van der Ven. Okay.
Yeah. This always amuses me because when we choose our dream list, it's always the names that are being speculated.
Yeah.
You never got anyone go throwing someone's a curveball. Like your dream one, should it be Mbappe? You want someone who's completely mad that's never going to happen. That's what dream means to me.
But we're playing dream within parameters here, aren't we? Like, I'm sorry to just go big fish, little fish, cardboard box there, but I mean, we're playing like this isn't just a Pele or whatever. You've got to pick someone that fits. You can still pick someone that isn't on the list.
Yeah, it's still out of these players, they're ones that we've not necessarily seen a lot of, so it's hard to judge, and you're just going for what you have seen, like the under-21 Euros, where if we're all logging into UEFA websites and staying glued to them for these games. I did a profile piece at the weekend, and Thuram was the one that seemed to fit the bill best. Like, he can be a number 6, he can be a number 8. He's really good on the ball, and he's got that he's been compared to Pogba. He's been compared to Frank Rijkaard from back in the day with Dutch. He's got that bit of Yaya Toure profile about him. That sort of player.
Tall, skillful player, which you don't see often, do you? But when a midfielder has that combination of height and presence plus technical ability, it's hard to beat, really, isn't it?
So that's one, like, at the moment, you see as the dream one because he ticks those boxes and it's a player you can get excited about. It's something that Liverpool lacked for a number of years now. When Klopp described his perfect midfielder, it was that profile. Someone who can do a bit of everything, who's 6'4", and you think Thuram fits the bill. Gravenberch
does he get goals, Thuram?
Hasn't got too many, but when you look at how Nice played him, it was more like in a deeper 2. Like, there was a few times when he was on the right-hand side of the 4-3-3, but you think, well, Liverpool could have him on the advanced midfield role in the new system, or they could have him as a 6 or an 8 in the traditional one, and he is still very young, so he can get better. Gravenberch technically ticks those boxes as well, but we all look at him and go, he's barely played at Bayern Munich.
That's the red flag, isn't it, against Gravenberch? Which shouldn't be like the be all and end all, because some players just don't fit certain clubs, but it is odd in the season that they haven't been that brilliant. He's not been able to play.
And the fact that he's spoken so much as well, it's like, is that a good thing or a bad thing that he just wants to give it up and go and try again elsewhere? Like, sometimes it just doesn't work at clubs. So we've seen Sadio Mane go there and it's not worked for him. I've seen a number of players leave Liverpool over the years and it hasn't worked from elsewhere, though. Just the perfect fit. And Gravenberch is someone Liverpool have been watching since they first played him in the Champions League back in 2020, when he was like 16, 17, 18, coming into that Ajax side. So he's another one who fits the bill there. And if we ignore the year at Bayern, you say he's more exciting than Thuram because he burst into the scene so much and he was supposed to be this next big generational talent. Granted, Bellingham sort of stolen that thunder somewhat and taken it to completely new levels.
It's incredible that they got him for such... Was it 21 million last year?
That was with the add-ons.
Yeah,
it was like 16 mil up front or something like that.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because you do look back at last year and think, well, if Liverpool were that convinced by him, surely when they were in the same year that they we're sniffing around an 88 million player in Tchouaméni.
Hmm.
I mean, what did Bayern just move quicker? Probably. But
It
yeah,
sounded like they sort of fell asleep, like in the terms of he was on the radar, but their attentions were looked at Tchouaméni and Bellingham having those discussions.
Sort of getting Nunes done last year as well.
And Bayern weren't looking at those two, so they just went and got him first.
Yeah.
They got two in once. They signed Missouri as well. So they signed it was like a double deal kind of thing.
Lucky I'm sitting next to two people who actually watch football nowadays.
Yeah.
Really get much chance. But sorry, so you on your list is Thuram, Gravenberch. You're looking at a defender.
Yeah,
you were big into a right back, weren't you? That was your thing. I'm pretty sure we discussed that.
I've done it at one point, and then I sort of U-turned at the same time. But that's because I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to stick with Trent as the inverted role.
Yeah. It's funny, like you said before, isn't it? How the narrative of the summer almost shapes. Like I think you wouldn't have said to anyone at the start of the summer, "Who's your dream sign?" And you go Thuram, Kefren Thuram from Nice. Like, and I do. People get very hung up on players that they'll have never watched. And they'll go, oh, Thuram, we don't get Thuram. I'm gutted we don't get Thuram. and at the start of the summer they'd never say him, and it's like that, isn't it? It's like, I want a right back. Liverpool aren't buying a right back. No, I don't really want a right back. They do get you into their narrative.
Well, got to choose your priorities as well, because you say if Liverpool had endless funds and they could sign whoever they wanted, if they're in City's position where he's good, he's available, let's just get him for the sake of it. You'd say, let's get a right back so we've got that cover. Let's move Simakas on and get a left back as well. Let's get a forward because Salah's on AFCON duty. But Liverpool are having to choose the battles, and it's that left-sided centre-back. And it's again, I've not really seen Van den Ven, but he's really tall. And there's that one video from recent it looks great. That one. So maybe we should be a bit more sensible and choose Levy Cole instead. But I did like the Van den Ven comments where he said, "Oh yeah, I'm aware of all the speculation. I speak about it with my agent. I'd love to move to the Premier League." It's like, he's actually been really honest about it. And he's a Dutch player who obviously, Van Dijk can be in his ear, Gakpo can be in his ear. He's already speaking the language, but other players could emerge on this list soon. Like we've seen Gonzalo Ignacio sort of emerge. And, I think
he's meant to be very good.
He's meant to be good, but they're not willing to do it.
Yeah.
And I think when they were being linked with Ugarte, and I got dismissed pretty quickly on. It's like we're thinking now maybe they weren't looking at Ugarte, they were looking at him.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's going to be a feasible deal. But, we're choosing a dream somewhere out of 4 or 5 players that we know are on the shortlist, and Liverpool still could just pluck a name that is not on that shortlist and say they were the first choice all along.
So who are you saying is your 3 then? Well,
Colwell and the 2 midfielders.
Yeah.
Just because I've actually seen Colwell.
You could throw another player in there if you want to. I mean, I'm going to go slightly different. I'm also going to be. I've joined the Thuram fan club. I'm on the Thuram train, but I'm going to throw James Ward-Prowse into there. You've got me with this blooming homegrown thing, Theo. I've been sitting near you too long, and this homegrown thing is keeping me up at night, and I'm thinking, what if Liverpool can't name 25 players? Whatever will we do? So I still think if Liverpool have got McAllister, if they sign Thuram and they've got a year left with Thiago, granted that he has his injury problems, they've still got a couple of years of Henderson, haven't they?
Yeah.
And I think.
So for all the aggregators, you're saying replace Thiago with James Ward-Prowse?
No, don't say that. Don't want that. Journalist says no, but I do like James Ward-Prowse, and I think if it's homegrown, a bit of experience, and we've seen Liverpool benefit from these types of deals before. I always go back to Shaqiri and think at the time.
He was a great signing.
It was a good signing, wasn't it? Liverpool were at that point where they had a good first 11 and needed to bolster the squad a little bit with players who were handy in different situations, and he proved to be really handy. I remember him scoring at Burnley, when they turned the game around there one year, and it's players like that just gain those extra points, and I quite like Ward-Prowse, and I think it'd be another weapon. I know his free kick, we talk about that ability, but that imagine get a free kick at the end of the game and you've got him coming off the bench or just on the pitch. It would put the fear of God into teams who wouldn't want to give away free kicks. You've obviously still got Trent there.
His corners are good as well.
His corners, set pieces.
I think we're saying they've got Van Dijk, they've got Konate. We're signing a 6'4" Thuram. We're signing a 6'3" Gravenberch.
And this is my dream. I don't think that, and say dream again. It's dream within the parameters of what we're talking about. But I don't think they would get him because I think Southampton would ask for a lot. But I do wonder if we got through to August, he's not sold, whether they'd still say 40 million or whether it would drop to 20. I don't know. But yeah, I like the idea of Ward-Prowse. I think he'd be a good third choice, and I feel like he's one as well that, you know, in a couple of years Liverpool could probably move him on and go again in midfield. And I sometimes think that, you know, we discussed City. City are quite good at that. They're quite good at bringing people in, using them, and then saying, right, we'll move him on. And I think Liverpool should do that more often.
Laporte's supposed to be the latest one, isn't he? Like, he's supposed to be on the move. Laporte.
Laporte,
Laporte. And he was like, what, the best centre-back in world football, along with Van Dijk for 2 years.
I mean, remember the year we won the title, he got injured, and it was, you know, it was almost like that really hurt them, didn't it? So I do think Liverpool wed themselves to players for quite a long time at times, and I just think that he'd be a good signing. So, yeah, and then, as I say, that one video of Van der Ven has got me signing him up. Rapid. But yeah, so that would probably be my 3. That question, by the way, was from Oren Thompson. So thanks for that question.
It's one of the more thought out questions as well.
Yeah. I'm just going through the stinky one. That was from someone called Calvin. Thank you for that. Let's go back to... Actually, there's a lot of questions on the same theme. What's Liverpool's transfer budget? How much do you think they'll spend? How much are all these players going to cost? What do you think, Tom? Do you think? I mean, no one's going to be able to sit there. I don't think there's any journalist who can sit there and say they've got a budget of 200 million. Because first of all, I don't even think it works like that. And second of all, Liverpool would never give that information away because that would be ridiculous. Never want like an opposition team to know. They've got Tom. Just answer this question. How much do you think? You didn't jump in there, Tom, and say...
Just let him suffocate on the podcast.
Like Joffrey. How much do you think Liverpool are roughly going to spend this summer, if you had to take a wild guess at it?
Well, we've already spent 35. I think it's probably going to be 150, around about that.
150, yeah.
Somewhere, I'd say around there, yeah.
Aggregators now getting out there.
The only summer I can really remember is like that is obviously 2018, where they spent a bit more than that. Since then, it's been, you know, a lot less than that. But I think this summer, if they're going to at least be signing 2 more midfielders, potentially a defender, I don't think there's any way it's going to be below 100. So
exactly. Even if they're 30 each.
Yeah. So I think it'd probably be somewhere between 120, 140, between that.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to...
Extra 20 million is going to be the difference in get their top 4 or not.
Don't think it's going to be like 200 plus million, but yeah, I would say it's going to be somewhere over 100, but not going crazy amounts, sort of to Chelsea levels that we've seen from Todd Bowley.
Go along with that, Theo?
To be honest, I don't care. It's not my money. They can spend what they want as long as they get the targets in. I think Liverpool's budget, it's never a window by window thing that we seem to think they have because of Football Manager in this. They get an annual budget and they work within that. And so Gakpo was part of that year's budget. He would have been a summer signing now if they could have waited, but they got him 6 months early, same as Diaz the year before. And it's just, you know, they've got their little computers behind the scenes going, how much is this player worth? How much can we get him for? So like McAllister was a bargain at 35 million. They will weigh it up deal by deal, and if it's not beyond the realms of what they've actually got in the kitty, they'll do it. They're not going to like bankrupt themselves or anything. But if there's a great opportunity that comes available, this player's 20 million less than we thought it'd be, can we go for him? They'll probably sanction it. Like we saw them with Alisson Becker. They thought, we're not going to sign a goalkeeper. Danny Ward's going to be number 1. He's not available. And then all of a sudden, here's 65 million to get him. And you can say, that was part of the Coutinho money, but they've already got Fabinho, Keita and Van Dijk with that. So they just welled up.
Don't forget that summer they were trying to sign Fekir.
People
as well.
Forget
about that, and they would have signed Fekir had it not been for those late issues with the deal. So, you know, I do think a budget isn't something, and we've had another question which I think sort of is a bit of a statement, but do Liverpool have a bigger transfer budget than the doom merchants predict? Or has a reliable source
Outgoings
confirmed that we're scratching around for every last penny? I can say that no one has said that we're scratching around for every last penny. It suits Liverpool negotiation-wise to act that they have little money available when they may actually have a considerable war chest. I don't think there's a such thing as a war chest. I mean, maybe Newcastle might have a war chest because they've got a bit of a bottomless pit, but I think it's exactly what you're saying, Theo, is that they know roughly in terms of how much they can sanction on certain players. And it might be they get to the end of the window, having spent loads, and a good deal comes up that they can do or they can't do. But,
just got a lovely image now of Newcastle having like this little bank vault with Screwtape Duck and all these coins, and they just dive in, get a handful out.
But that's it. That's not how budgets work. Like in any place, you know, like you don't. I don't know. It's not just like a big box that they open and they go, right, it's empty now. So wait till next summer, we'll refill it. I think, you know, there might be times when Liverpool have gone, we'll buy him next summer, but the chance to buy them is now. So there you go. Diaz is the perfect example of that, of a time when they've gone, we'll buy him in the summer, chances come up there and then, and they've spent that money. So I think people need to get this idea of like transfer budget out their heads. There will be deals that they'll have to say no to, Jude Bellingham being one of them, because of the costing, but I don't think that is because they look at a budget as such. I think it's almost like a discussion, is it, around the table, and they say, you know, we can't come to it.
So almost as though that's the recruitment model, with the sporting director, the recruitment team, the ownership and the manager. Yeah,
well there you go. I'm just looking through the questions, and there's still loads of transfer questions, so we'll come back to them, but I quite like this question. I want to sort of come away from transfers just for a minute to ask this. Shades of Grey at 50 has asked, do you think there'll be much change around VAR decisions, and what change do you think should be added or removed? And then he says, I think goalkeepers should be watched when kicking the ball from their hands on the 18-yard line, as I believe some hold the ball over the line, and the 6-second rule should be enforced more. Yes, I definitely think it should. He says especially for Pickford. But I'm not so worried about Pickford, but in general, 100% think that 6-second rule. It really, 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 really annoys me that we talk about time wasting. I remember when Mignolet got done.
Yeah.
And I think if they want to stop time wasting, one of the things they should do, and this would be my change, 50 Shades of Grey at 50. No, Shades of Grey at 50. Oh, I see what he's done there. My change would be to give more indirect free kicks against goalkeepers who time waste. I think it's yellow cards.
Free kicks in the box. They're great. You know, when you just tug it off in the box and someone absolutely
But if a goalkeeper is absolutely taking the you know what when they're time wasting, then an indirect free kick would definitely put them off, because a yellow card doesn't bother them, because you know if you're 1 minute before the end of the game, you're not bothered about getting booked, are you? And I definitely think so many of them hold it over the 6 seconds. They either have that rule or don't, because it's a bit silly now. But go on, changes to VAR.
Well, they're bringing in, going back to like time wasting and that. They're bringing in a new law next season, which has already been approved.
Next season or this season?
This season coming.
Yeah.
For
which is when? Sorry, Tom.
August.
Oh,
so goal celebrations will now be accounted for time wasting.
Yeah.
So if you spend 2 minutes celebrating off with your teammates, that's now going to be added on by the referee to added time. So that's been confirmed.
What happens if VAR checks it, so you celebrate it once, have to wait for the check and then celebrate again? VAR not time wasted then.
Surely they'll take the second celebration as the...
But they do need to clamp down on it more though. I mean, we saw it with Newcastle being the worst offenders for it last season.
The time wasted their way to the Champions League this season.
Just horrendous. Like every game they were doing it, and you can't really do anything against it, which makes it even worse. Because
I hope they really get a hostile Champions League group. Like, imagine having to go to like Istanbul or somewhere like that and having all the whistles and the booze and the bottles thrown down on them because they're time wasting.
Oh, to be fair, you know, like one of them, fair play to them. I'd rather Newcastle enjoy the success than Manchester United, but yeah, they were bad for time wasting this season. Theo, any rules you'd change? VAR? I mean, I'd love to scrap VAR altogether. I think it's a bad thing. I was going to swear that, bad thing.
Well, the change to VAR, we've already missed the boat from coming in this year, haven't they? Like, all the changes are now done, so we'd have to wait.
I don't think this guy is actually asking you to write to the FA and get it changed. Theo, just tell us what you want.
I've probably done that in a piece before when I said that VAR's broken. There's so much you could change. Like, I think rather than having VAR on everything when they sort of fluctuate between what is up for debate and what isn't, just have it as managers can appeal decisions. Like, you know, in tennis, where you can just challenge one, I don't agree with that. You can do it in cricket as well. Like, make it a bit more tactical.
Oh, I don't like that.
But then the game can just flow, can't it?
No, you're making the game not flow.
Why? If you're flowing, so
you're allowing managers to challenge something.
Yeah, but you only get a limit on challenges. You can't challenge everything. I don't know, say 3. Yeah.
So you get 3 challenges a game. Both managers can challenge 3 times. That's 6 challenges that are going to happen each game, which involves a conversation, which involves, I don't know, let's say again that we're in the last 3 minutes of a game and the team's 0-0 or something like that, or 1-0 up. That manager would be challenging, and they haven't used their challenges. You'd be challenging left, right, and centre to bloody the entire.
But then it's tactical. It's something that you can bring in. It's something else to have in the game. You've got a bit more control
Don't tell
over
me
it.
you agree with it. So.
Yeah, I think it would probably be a bit too much. But I see what you mean. They do have it. Like, so they have it in other sports.
Timekeeping, rather, they keep saying, should we just make it a 60-minute match? Clock stops when it goes out of play.
They should stop the clock. I agree with that. That's one thing they should do. If you have an injury or something, they should stop the clock.
I suppose the other side of that is we got to the World Cup where they had like 15 minutes added on the end of the game, and there's got to be a point, hasn't there, where they say, you know what, we can't play 15 minutes at the end of every game, even if Newcastle have been juggling the ball on the sidelines. I think there has to be a limit, but there just has to be practical ways of. It seems to be time wasting, by the way, is the theme here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost as though it happened against Liverpool many times last season.
Well, I think it is happening in football quite a lot. I don't know. I mean, it's always happened, doesn't it? But I do feel like it's something that even the more ambitious clubs are taking on a bit more.
Well, think back to the Barcelona game when you're 4-0 up. It's like Liverpool, time wasting in the corner. You're all screaming from time wasting in the corner.
Yeah,
you're not saying, oh no, you can't do that.
But time wasting in the corner, by the way, is a different thing entirely.
Yeah.
To
the keeper.
Alisson
could time waste all he wants in that game. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's as long as it suits you in the interest of that match. We change our narrative, don't we?
Yeah, and I suppose with Liverpool, they get frustrated because teams time waste against them because they protect them 0-0 or whatever it might be. And moving on then. Question marks over Fabinho's ability to reach peak form again, and Henderson's legs clearly gone. How crucial would the signing a defensive midfielder be, with only Possessor, only 18 and coming back from a long-term injury? Tom, do you think they need a defensive midfielder?
It's probably a position they do need to look at, because as me and Theo were talking about on one of the podcasts recently with Fabinho, you don't really know what you're going to get next year from him, because what we saw from him last season was a bit inconsistent compared to previous years. I guess that would be Thuram would take on that kind of role in where Fabinho would be, but yeah, they haven't got a great deal of cover in there. And then, as you said about Henderson, he's not quite got the legs he used to have, getting older. He's probably not going to be playing every game now. He's going to be probably more of the Milner role of coming in games. So if Fabinho was to get injured as well, you're going to be left short there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a position they need to look at, because we don't know what Fabinho's future is at the club. It's unlikely he's going to be staying past his contract. I mean, it would be unlikely, I think.
He's 2025 as well, is he, Fabinho?
Well, no, he's one of the longer ones.
Is he?
I think he's 26 or 27. I think it's 26.
Okay.
But once you get to his point, his next contract, I couldn't see him,
That's
getting in.
3 years.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I think he'd still stay for at least another year or two, but I don't think, Liverpool aside from him haven't got much competition for that position, so it's definitely something they need to look at this summer, I think.
What about you, Theo? You go along with that?
Well, I think Liverpool are looking at it in terms of, you look at the players on this shortlist that we know are out there. Kone is holding midfielder, Lavia is a holding midfielder, Gravenberch and Thuram are more 8s box to box, but they can do it in the way that Gini and Adam could do it before. So whoever they bring in, you'd imagine it is one who can fill in that role sometimes. Like we said, Fabinho's got a few years left on his contract, and he gets to the end of that contract. Bajcetic is in his 20s. You think, well, you'll know if he's a number 8 or if he's a number 6 at that point, and you can dress it more there. I think it is just horses for courses at the moment. You get in another all-rounder, but a more physical all-rounder in comparison to McAllister, who can be the number 6 when you want them to be, but they can also be a number 8. That keeps you going for this year, next year, unless Fabinho drops off even more. Not playing every week, you might get a bit more from Fabinho, because he has been playing a ridiculous amount of football over the past 3-4 seasons, and then you can reassess the situation when he's at the end of his contract and your players are that little bit older. You've obviously still got Tyler Morton in the mix, who was a great number 8 at the academy level, did well at number 6 when he had his year in the first team. He'll be looked at in pre-season. It's not the pressing issue in that midfield for me at the moment, having the holding midfielder. It's more getting the legs, those box-to-box players that can just give Liverpool their intensity back, their identity back, and if someone can do a couple of jobs in it, it covers you for now. But you've got to pick your battles.
Yeah, I go along with that. I still think Liverpool will get a bit more out for Fabinho if they get the right people in around him.
Yeah.
I don't think it's any surprise that his form improved towards the end of the season when they had Trent going in alongside him. He looked a bit better with Bajcetic alongside him, and once Liverpool form picked up themselves. So I still think they'll get a bit more out for Fabinho, but I do think you're right. And I think it leads into our next question, and one we will finish on, which is, what players would you sell this summer? And just my answer to that would be, I don't really think there's many people in the squad that they can afford to. Maybe a Tsimikas, but they'd have to buy another left back. But apart from that, I don't really see there's any position that you could, unless they're young or whatever, that you could sell, because I personally would sell Thiago. I don't think Thiago has a long-term future at Liverpool, certainly beyond the end of next season. I don't think he's contributed as much as we hoped. But I don't think they can afford to sell Thiago because he's, they haven't got enough midfielders. And I think if you go back a couple of years, by not buying midfielders in a spread out way, they should have been signing one this summer, one last, possibly one the year before, and changing the squad that way.
Basically what they did with the forwards.
Yeah, exactly. I think what they've done is they've cost themselves the chance to sell a Thiago. Could they have let Firmino go this summer had they not signed Diaz 18 months ago and Darwin Núñez last summer and Gakpo at Christmas? They've done that right with the forwards, and and in doing so they've opened up the chance to allow those players to turn over. But I think in midfield now they're stuck, so I don't think they can sell a Fabinho. I don't think they can sell a Thiago, and it's probably a similar story in defence, because I think you probably sell Matip, wouldn't you, while you can get a little bit of cash for him, but
Nat Phillips.
You can't. It's funny one with Nat Phillips, because he's the type of player he's only ever done all right when he's come in. Sorry, you're saying sell him?
I think it probably makes sense.
They've desperately tried to sell him every summer for the last 10 years, haven't they? But he's done really well when he's come in. I really like him, and in some ways you'd think maybe he could come in and be an understudy and they could sign someone else, but obviously they don't see it like that. So yeah, I don't think they'll sell any high profile players. Nat Phillips obviously they will try and sell, but I'm hopeful that Nat Phillips just stays in Liverpool like for the rest of the time, and they just.
He's closing on a testimonial in a couple of years.
Yeah, they just keep extending this contract. So fair play to him. Love Nat Phillips. Go on, Theo. Who would you sell?
I think Kelleher does need to go. As good as he is, and you don't want to see him leave.
Stay, though, yeah.
You want him to stay. He could play in the Europa League for a year, but if you need to raise some funds, he's the obvious one. It almost feels unfair keeping him at this stage. Like, by all means, put a buyback in that contract. Say we'll sign you back in 3 years' time when Alisson's a bit older and might need an in number one.
Yeah, buyback is a good shot.
But for now, just let him go and play elsewhere. Granted, that makes it harder to get in a good number two. This is always Liverpool's issue, where they look and, we could sell this player and get X for him, but are we actually going to get in a better replacement who can pick it up straight away rather than need time to ease in? And more often than not, they've decided not to, and then players have just gone on free transfers. Like we've seen Emre Can, I would rather just keep him for the last year. Gini Wijnaldum, rather just keep him for the last year. We're going to see it again with Matip and Thiago by the looks of things. And Liverpool is quite a wealthy club within reasons. Like, they're not Man City rich, Newcastle rich, but it's not a case of we desperately need that 10 million from Joel Matip just to break even this year. Yeah. Like, he's going to be a good option as a fourth choice centre back, a third choice centre back. There are a number of players in that squad who you could try and upgrade on. Matip is one, Tsimikas is one.
But you can't sign everyone at once.
You can't
sell everyone.
Like, this was part of the reason why the midfield was put on hold until this year, because they were doing the attack last year. They didn't want to basically just rewrite 2/3 of the team in one summer.
And saying that, it's not like getting your kitchen done, saying we can't afford that bathroom at the same time. I still think they could have put in a new toilet. you know what I mean? I still think I think looking back the last 2 years, they're buying 3 midfielders this year or thereabouts. They should have signed one each other somewhere for the last 3 years.
Yeah. If they desperately wanted to raise funds, 2 months ago you and me were saying, we'd sell Jota, get 40-50 million for him, job done, everyone's happy. But then he comes in and puts in all those goals at the end of last season. Think, he can still do a job. We'll keep him as one of the forwards.
Halfway through last season, a lot of people were talking about selling Fabinho. Tom, who would you sell before we say goodbye?
I was saying before Nat Phillips, I think it's probably...
I don't really count Nat. He's not been a first team defender for a while now. He just fills in there.
I think that's a cop out.
Yeah,
to be honest.
No, it's not, because he's still a player in the first team. So
do you want to sell Matty Musilowski as well?
No, Matt Phillips is the choice because all he's doing is sitting on the bench most weeks. He's not.
Tom, no one's sitting at home going like, "Don't sell Nat Phillips."
Well,
no offense to Nat Phillips. Maybe. I mean.
It's just his value is not going up just by sitting on the bench. You might as well sell him at this point.
They are going to try that.
Aside from Nat Phillips, let's take Nat Phillips out of the equation, Tom.
I probably would have said Curtis Jones.
You knew he was going to say that.
I would have said.
Problem?
I would have said Curtis Jones a couple of months ago, to be honest, because
homegrown, another one.
Yeah.
We'll get the name of squad, but if you get your way.
Curtis Jones is obviously turning it around a little bit at the end of last season, so he's probably not going to be sold. But
would you sell Salah to Saudi?
No. I think the only other one you could probably say is Simicast, because you could probably get a decent-ish fee for him. You'd probably make a profit on the money they paid for him still, even at this point. And yeah, there probably is a better option they could find at left back. So I think if it was going to be anyone, it would probably be Simicast. I don't think...
got there eventually.
Some people are saying Joe Gomez, but I don't think they should sell him.
Homegrown, can't sell Joe Gomez.
If he wasn't homegrown, though, you probably would say Joe Gomez.
Yeah.
I think
it's more...
feels like
he's
his race
club
has been
trained.
Yeah.
So like there's very few players. If they let him go, they only can get like a Connor Cody or a Raheem Sterling, who they're not going to want, not going to make moves for. But there's only so many players out there that are available that can tick that box. Yeah. And Gomez can play right back, which is, even though none of us have actually just said sell Gomez, I don't know why I'm defending him here, but that's the reason they don't need a right back at the moment, because Gomez is there to offer that cover.
Well, I think we will leave it there. Thank you for all your questions. Hopefully we got through quite a few of them there. And we'll do another Q&A fairly soon. I think that went well. And we'll be back on Friday to see if there's any developments in Liverpool's transfer chase. But until then, take care. See you soon.
You've been listening to the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.